I'm here today at the Sisters of the Gospel of Life, who are based in the south side of Glasgow, but who have been long-time ambassadors and attendees at the Diocese of Paisley First Fridays for Life Masses. These are a novena of Masses held monthly around the diocese on First Fridays, beginning around the feast day of Our Lady of the Holy Rosary and ending 9 months later around the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The Sisters of the Gospel of Life run the cardinal-winning pro-life initiative, which was set up in 1997 by the late Cardinal Thomas Winning to offer help to women facing a crisis pregnancy or suffering in the aftermath of an abortion. The Sisters of the Gospel of Life was founded in 2000 to take forward the late Cardinal's vision of a pro-life initiative where all human life is respected and protected from conception to natural death. Working towards that vision are Sister Andrea, Sister Catherine and Sister Roseann Reddy, who I'm speaking to today. Sister Roseann, how did you come to be involved in the Diocese of Paisley First Fridays for Life Masses?
We have had our own monthly pro-life mass in Glasgow for about the last 10 years. It's just in the one church that we've had it, really. And so we thought, well, we'll go along, that's nice, we'll go along and support them because we're have very close contacts with the diocese because we've helped many women from the diocese over the years. And we went along to the first one, not really, I don't think at the time, appreciating that it was a novena of masses, but obviously when we got there and it was explained, and I had myself personally had a particular intention that I wanted to pray for. And I thought, well, this is perfect. This is to do this novena of masses for that intention would be brilliant. And so we've managed, Sister Catherine and myself have managed to get to all of them so far. And I have given strict instructions that I must get to the last one. If they have to stretcher me in, they must make sure I get there because, I always feel something's going to happen that's going to stop me getting to it, but nothing's going to stop me getting to it. And so that's how, and we have thoroughly enjoyed going to them. It's been really lovely. But it's also been great to go around the Diocese of Paisley. It's been... from all the different parishes, we've gone to all the different people that you meet. And lots of people know us because they know of the work of the initiative and stuff like that. So it's been really nice. People have come up and said, oh, sister. And then they always tell you a wee story. So when we went to the one in Greenock at the Little Sisters, the first little sister who opened the door was like, oh, I'm Cardinal Winning's cousin. And she was all delighted to then tell us stories about Cardinal Winning. And so there's lots of little things like that go on.
It is a novena of masses, novena obviously meaning 9, which is important when you're thinking about life and in particular life in the womb. The masses, the 9 masses, also begin and end around very specific feast days and solemnities in the Catholic calendar. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think, again, the 9-month thing is always just, because 9 months is the time you spend in the womb. Ordinarily, it's the time most of us spent in the womb. And it's quite among pro-life people, it's quite a noticeable thing, so the minute you say a novena, everybody goes, 9 months, and there's a connection, and they kind of see that connection with us and with the work that we do. And I think the fact it started on the Feast of the Holy Rosary, and the Rosary is very important to us. We pray the Rosary in community every night, and we pray it often, and we pray it especially if there's a particular intention, so if we have a mum whose baby's in danger of abortion, then it's the kind of thing we would say to people, please just say a decade. And people understand that, and people are happy to do that. And that's a prayer, the thing of cor ad cor, heart speaks to heart. Well, if you speak to our Blessed Mother about a child in danger, she who bore the Christ child in her womb, she knows that's just an intimate and a knowledge that she's going to protect that child as best she can. And so that's always good. And I believe it's finishing in the Feast of the Sacred Heart, which is a great feast because, again, if the pro-life movement's about anything, it's about love. It's about love for that child, love for that child's mother, love for its siblings and its family, love for all of those concerned with life. Our piece of scripture that we follow, we have as our kind of motto, I suppose, is John 10:10. I have come that they may have life and life in abundance. So it's not just about saving their life, but it's about giving that mum and that child the best chance of life, the best chance to live their life abundantly. And so that's where the Sacred Heart comes in, because the heart of Jesus is the most abundant thing ever. It's just the heart, the unconditional love of Christ. Is what pulls us through everything, every trauma in life, every sadness in life, every joy in life. Comes back, for me anyway, to that heart of Jesus and his message of love. So I think it's a lovely thing. It's not a coincidence that they started them in one day and they're finishing it in one feast and they're finishing it in another feast. I think that's one of the riches of the Catholic Church, is that we have such fantastic feasts to celebrate, and we should celebrate them.
The masses have taken place everywhere, from St Mirren's Cathedral in Paisley to Inverclyde, other locations in Renfrewshire, East Renfrewshire, and finishing in Neilston this year. It's great that gives so many people the opportunity to be part of the masses.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to go around to new churches. I think all of the churches we've been in, there's about 3 of them I'd never been in before. And I'd known them, I'd heard about them. I knew people whose parish it was. I knew people who had been brought up in that parish. And it was great to go to those parishes. We were in Houston last Friday, and I'd never been to Houston. I'd certainly never been to the church, and they had a beautiful Marian procession afterwards, because it was the month of May, and they've got a beautiful Mary garden there. And so little things like that. Now, I'll always remember that. So anytime I'm passing Houston, I'll pop in and say a prayer in that church and in that thing. And it's been great in all of the places. Every place we've gone has been something different. And of course, there's a great thing that after Mass, there's always a wee cup of tea, the great Catholic tradition of a cup of tea. And even that kind of the parishioners serving you tea and serving, there's a great pride in it. People are that's one of the things I've discovered, is that people are really proud of the parishes that they belong to. And they'll tell you little bits about the history, or about previous priests, or about the current priests, or about the community of sisters they have in the parish. Whatever it might be, there's great pride there, and that's a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing to be part of that huge family, and in such a way that in every parish I've been to, it's been different, but they've all prepared. They've all done something, whether it's the music or the cup of tea afterwards, or the welcome, that there's somebody there to welcome you. And they always start with a holy hour and with exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. And it's just lovely. Anytime we get there, we're usually late because it's Friday night and we're coming from the office. But anytime we get there, there's always half a dozen people just sitting there quietly saying their prayers and praying for the cause of life. And that's an incredibly powerful thing.
The Sisters of the Gospel of Life run the cardinal-winning pro-life initiative. Can you tell me a bit about the background, how that came into being?
Well, the pro-life initiative started on the 9th of March 1997, when Cardinal Winning, God rest him, was at a pro-life conference, and he decided to make this announcement. And he basically said, any woman thinking of having an abortion, don't do it, come to the church and we will help you. It was the 30th anniversary of the passing of the 1967 Abortion Act. And I asked him afterwards, and he said, I just suddenly thought, I know there are other groups that people can go to for help, and a lot of Catholics were involved in that, but I just thought, everybody knows the church are against abortion, but do they know that they can come to us and we will help them? And I worked for the Cardinal at the time, and so he asked me, after he'd made the announcement, which only the Cardinal could have done, he asked me if I would mind running it for him, whatever it became. And it very quickly became what we now know as the Cardinal Winning Pro-Life Initiative. And so from that day to this day, we have basically been there to help women in any kind of stress or any kind of anxiety about being pregnant and not sure of what they want to do. And it's changed so much in the last 30 years, or nearly 30 years. It's just, in the early days, it was much more teenage pregnancies, and it was much more people just needing practical help. Now it's changed beyond measure, partly because of the pills by the post. So it's harder to actually reach women because they don't come through the same ways. Nowadays, most of the women who get in touch with us get in touch via email or text or through a friend or through an organisation like a health visitor or a social worker or a doctor or a teacher or something. But they still are getting in touch, not in the same numbers, but the ones who are getting in touch now, their needs are much more complex, and there's certain trends that we're finding, that everybody's finding, which is things like mental health now. Mental health is so... I don't think I've dealt with a woman in the last 2 years who has not made mention of her mental health, that, she's stressed or it's kind of taken on a new level, really. And also the needs are much more complex because people now have much more to lose. The kind of teenage mum of 35 years ago is not the same as the woman in a crisis pregnancy today. So we would try and help those women in whatever way we can, and we support many young families as well, people who are just struggling to get by, because it is difficult these days, and people don't have the same family support, and they don't have the same, I think, capacity to cope with things. And so we are there to try and help them, to try and encourage them, to try and lift them up a bit, because what we find is that many of them have just believe they can't do things, the kind of, there's no way I'd be able to do that. Well, let's see if you can. Let's see if we can offer support. Let's see with the help that we can give you if you would be able to do that. And also, I think it's just a totally different world from even 15 years ago. I think, the world that people live in, especially younger people, is incredible, and it's amazing. I think all of that technology and all of that is changing things though, and that's one of the things that I've seen going to the masses, is younger people coming and people who are committed to being pro-life, as I think it's changing things. And I think that's partly because, whenever I would give a talk or anything on the issue of abortion, I just say to people, just look on your phone, just put in 10-week-old baby. And, I have got dozens of things on my phone and on my Facebook page from family and friends and some of the women we work with who have sent me pictures of their 10-week scan. That's how most baby announcements are done today. We're having a baby, here's the picture. And so I think the very reality of that is people are beginning to catch on to it, if that's what the 10-week baby looks like when it's wanted, it still looks like that, even if there's a problem, even if there's concerns, even if there's reasons that people are thinking abortion is the answer. And what we try and do is to take away those reasons, so to give the support that enables them to make a different choice.
What does a typical day involve when you are called, say, to help a family in need?
The first thing about a typical day is there's no such thing as a typical day. Every day in our centre is different. Every single day, we are giving people help. So we have a big bank of clothes and equipment and all sorts of stuff in the centre that we run. And so every day we have health visitors, social workers, teachers, doctors, nurses, all sorts of people coming for help. And they have asked us for that help, and we just give it. The kind of general rule is, if I've got it and you need it, you can get it. So we don't make people go through hoops. So that's like practical things like children needing clothing, adults needing clothing, needing prams, needing cots, needing all the equipment kind of things you need for a baby. And that's a very simple part of our work. Kind of every single day, there are people collecting stuff to take to families. And that's a great thing, because that shows the church cares. Because it really isn't enough to say to people, you have to have this baby and then not be there to support them when they need it. And as anybody who's had a child will know, it's a hard job. It's probably the hardest job in the world. And every little bit of support that you can give makes a difference. And it's not just what you give, but it's how you give it. So you give it with a kind of generous heart and with joy that you're doing it. And you give it while having tried to get from the mum and the dad and the family and whoever, the granny sometimes, trying to get what would really help. And that's why the first thing that we do and everything that we do is we listen. So we ask the women, how do you think we can help you? And sometimes that's just, well, listen, I just don't know how I'm going to get nappies. I don't know how I'm going to get the things I need for the baby. Well, we can put a plan in place to provide that for as long as necessary. And usually we would provide stuff for the baby for the first year. And then after that, it's kind of like, it's up to you now if you want to continue with this. Because a crisis pregnancy is not always a crisis baby. People just panic. But once they get into a rhythm, once the babies come, they can manage things much easier. So sometimes it's just sitting down with people and saying, well, let's see how we can help you. Other times it's just saying, what do they need? Here we can provide it. And other times it's much more complicated. So sometimes it's you have to get lots of other people involved. So sometimes people come and they may have debt, which of course is giving them incredible stress because they can't see a way out of it. Now, you would be an idiot if you paid off anybody's debt, but there are ways of managing debt, which that person has to take responsibility for. But we try and take maybe the scariness out of that, say, well, let's sit down, let's work out your income, your expenditure, let's work out how we can help you to manage these debts so that you can live a bit more freely, a bit less stressful. Because again, a happier mum is a happier baby, is a happier child, is a happier family, is a happier society. So that's why we some of the times it would be much longer term things. Sometimes it's helping people with relationships. They might be in a bad relationship that they need to get out of, but they just cannot see how to get out of it. So sometimes the work is quite intense, so sometimes it's sitting down, sometimes people are in fear of the baby's father or of someone else, and they are just caught. They just don't know, they can't see the way out. And so sometimes we can sit down with all the experience that we have and we can kind of guide people to see what they need to change, but I can't force them to do it. I can only encourage and I can only guide. So that kind of work is quite labour intensive. That takes a long time. But we're committed to doing that. We're committed to try and do what is the best thing for that woman and what's the best thing for her child. And then other days, it's literally moving furniture, painting things. It's like, we do a lot of... again, life in abundance. So if someone say we've managed to help someone move into a better housing situation, then you want to help them by giving them nice little things to make their house a bit nicer. So, we would we've got a lot of practical stuff in our centre. So it's maybe a day spent with a mum, go and say, what about these lamps? Do you like them? We can give you them. And what about, have you got this? Have you got that? And that's the kind of thing. Again, part of it is about just providing, but part of it is about building the mum up herself, so everything that we do is confidential. So our whole kind of thing would be to say to the mum, nobody needs to know where you got this stuff. But you got this stuff, you managed to provide for your children, and that for us is really important, and for them is really important. And we try and do it a bit like, it's not like a kind of charity handout, but it's like a hand up. And that's very important. And we do it in a way that hopefully we think is very human. So it's a bit like, well, it wouldn't fit me, so you might as well have it for the baby, because people are reluctant to ask for help and people are reluctant to take that help. But when you can sort of present it to them in such a way that it's a very natural thing, this is what I would do if you were my little sister, this is what I would do if you were my friend, and this is what we do because Christ asked us to do it. I was naked and you clothed me, I was hungry and you fed me, I was sick and you visited me, I was in prison and you came to see me. And then being in prison can mean a lot of things. A lot of people are imprisoned in a way of life that they just can't seem to get out of, no matter how bad they know it to be. And if you can help them to get out of that at a time when they really want to do that, because what they want, something they're not strong enough to do for themselves, because they're having this baby, they suddenly, I don't want my child to be brought up the way I was or brought up in this circumstance. So it gives them an ideal opportunity. And we just try and help with that.
What's your vision for the future of the Cardinal winning pro-life initiative? Where do you see things in a few years from now? And what support is required to ensure things can be sustained long term?
Funnily enough, that has changed entirely. I think when we started, there was a much more emphasis and much more thought in my mind about big things, about doing big things and, making big statements and sort of trying to get big publicity or do whatever. Now, in all my years and my experience, I have come to really, really believe in the power of little things. So I think the little things that you do and you do well. It's like Mother Teresa said, whatever you do for Christ, do well. And in the little things. And I think that has become a bit of a motto for us. So I see the future as in encouraging other people to do the little things, but to do them well. So there is something everybody can do for the pro-life movement. The first thing you have to be is you have to be committed to it, because it is a hard thing to be involved in, because it's controversial, because people get all upset about it, because it's difficult. It's difficult to, because at the heart of it is the death of a child. If I did not believe that abortion takes a human life, I never would have got involved in the pro-life movement. And I got involved because a friend of mine had an abortion, and I saw what it did to her, and I had to really challenge everything I thought. And we work a lot now through Rachel's Vineyard. Sister Andrea particularly, that's her thing. She works a lot with post-abortive women and men and people involved in abortion, and the healing that needs to come and does come. And when it comes, it's like new life all over again. It's an amazing thing. So I have always, in recent years, said that what my vision for the future would be getting more people involved, just doing the little things. And the little thing can be, sometimes people say to me, oh, sis, I don't really know what I could do. And we say, well, can you knit or can you crochet? And I say, oh, yeah. I said, right, well, knit me things. And when you're knitting that little cardigan for that new baby, you think of that baby and its mum, and you pray for that in every stitch. And that makes a remarkable difference. It really doesn't matter what you do. If you do nothing else but commit to saying a prayer every day for the cause of life, that would turn this world around. It really would. And also the thing of making your parishes. This is one of the things I love about the Paisley pro-life masses, is they're going around different parishes. So parishes are becoming aware that we are a pro-life church. And there's a difference between being anti-abortion and being pro-life. I'm against abortion, all abortion, because of what it is. But it's because I believe in life and life in abundance. And so I think if people just commit to doing that, then do little things. So get involved, come to the Mass, the next time the Family and Life Commission, Marriage and Life Commission do something, just go to it, just say, I'm going to go to that Mass, I'm going to go to that prayer meeting, I'm going to go to that talk, I'm going to do whatever, I'm going to donate £10, I'm going to, make something for the coffee morning they're having, whatever it is. I think it's just, for me, if more people would get involved and if more people would do things, in a sort of constant way, so that if they just commit to being pro-life, if they just commit to talking about it among their family and friends, if they just commit to praying for it, it would make a huge difference. And it does make a huge difference. And I certainly feel that these Paisley Masses have raised the profile of the pro-life movement in Paisley Diocese and in Scotland as a whole, because there's now masses happening in Motherwell Diocese. We've got a mass here we've had for years, in lots of other dioceses. Things are definitely happening. And I think it's just people saying, times have changed, people have changed. People are not going to come out for huge, big things anymore, but people will commit to doing a small thing. And so that's my vision that I see, is just to carry on doing what we're doing and just taking every opportunity to expand the message and to expand the work that we do. And I think the first thing about that, and I often say this to people, if you don't know what to do, ask God to guide you. Ask God to send that person into your life. That's that mum who needs help that you can help. Ask God to send that person into your life who you can support in some way that helps the pro-life cause, and He will. At least that's been my experience.
Sister Roseann, thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thank you.